More from the Archers at the same time tomorrow. In a moment, we go back to the early days of the BBC in our bank holiday afternoon play.
There was a book written in 79 that said it would be impossible to have a socialist comedian in Britain.
Then along came alternative comedy.
In that atmosphere, you couldn't really have got away with being right-wing.
It was a movement unwittingly fostered by one woman.
A lot of the stuff about Margaret Thatcher strayed into the sort of misogyny that a lot of these comics had eschewed about women. She was always being characterised in rather sexist terms.
Alternative comedy and her part in it.
The world we lived in was in kind of turmoil, so that got reflected. Cometh the hour, cometh the gag.
Margaret Thatcher, ha ha ha, on Saturday morning at 10:30.
This is BBC Radio 4, it's 2:15. Today's afternoon play takes us back 80 years to the general strike of 1926, the most important industrial dispute in British history. The strike was a defining moment in the history of the 3.5-year-old British Broadcasting Company, and a time of great stress for its managing director, John Reith.
"9 Days in May" by Robin Glendinning.
The mine owners of Britain arrive at the Ritz Hotel to discuss the crisis in the coalfields. If the miners are not prepared to work for longer hours for less wages, the owners threaten to lock them out of the pits. Oh, go easy with that coal scuttle, missus. It may be the last you'll see of the black stuff for some time. You are quite right, sir. There were no newsreels in 1926, no talkies, no television. There was just the fledgling BBC Wireless. Not a corporation with a charter, simply a company formed by the wireless manufacturers, and its managing director was the 36-year-old John Reith.
Eckersley.
Yes, Mr. Reith.
If the trade unions back the miners, there'll be a general strike. I want to speak to all your engineers.
The engineers
You must be ready, Eckersley.
fully aware of...
Ready, man? Ready.
But suppose there had been newsreels. Newsreels, moreover, quite unaffected by any general strike. Newsreels in a tone of voice that would have been anathema to John Reith. Then this is what you might have seen. This silence is brought to you by the owners of British coal mines. The union leaders of the Federation of Mine Workers have refused to even discuss lower wages and an increase in the hours of work. The colliery gates are shutting all over Britain. Even though talks between government and unions continue over the weekend of the 1st and 2nd of May, it's a lockout. Hang on, sir. Don't throw away that key. The British people will want their coal back soon.
You know what this means, Muriel?
A general strike. Do you want your umbrella?
A general strike for the first time in our history. I think I should announce the beginning of it myself. What do you think?
Well, of course, dear, if that's
It's
what
not self-flattery to say that no one else can do it as well as I can. I shall set the tone, Muriel. I shall set the tone.
We interrupt the music for an important announcement. Mr. John Reith, Managing Director of the British Broadcasting Company.
The General Council of the Trades Union Congress has called a general strike in sympathy with mine workers and has issued strike notices to a number of unions to cease work from midnight tonight, Monday, the 3rd of May. The entire nation is facing an extreme and unprecedented trial. We must put our trust in Almighty God to see us through the crisis. The Prime Minister, Mr. Baldwin, has sent this message to you all. Keep steady. Remember that peace on earth comes to all men of good will.
This first silence of the general strike is brought to you by the unions representing the workers in the printing industry. Sorry, no papers this morning, sir. Whatever will he do without that crossword? Work?
I want news bulletins at 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock and 9:30.
What will the press barons say about that?
They haven't got presses, have they?
Where do we get the news?
From the agencies.
What about their copyright?
I warrant they'll waive it. To whom else can they sell the news? Eckersley?
Yes, Mr. Reith.
Why don't we start collecting our own news?
Like journalists.
If I didn't think we could do better than that, I wouldn't start. And what about trying to replace the newspaper's editorials with editorials of our own?
Surely, editorials...
Oh, not opinions about this or that event, but just good common sense, dealing with the daily problems we all face.
Have we got the staff to do all this?
When the storm rages, everyone aboard must lend a hand. Are your engineers willing hands, Eckersley?
Of course they are.
Good man. I knew you'd see the prize was worth the winning.
Tuesday morning, the 4th of May. This silence is brought to you by the trades unions representing the workers in transport. No trains, trams or omnibuses. If you haven't got a motor car, sir, it's Shanks's pony for you. We hope the leather's good on those shoes.
Since the BBC was founded, we've been allowed only one news bulletin a day at 7 p.m, when the press think that all their newspapers have been sold.
I know, dear, you've told me. In 1922...
My aim, Muriel, to make the BBC a national institution has been belayed by the crude power and the financial considerations of the press. Now I can free the rope from its commercial cleat and sail free.
If you don't mind, my dear,
Muriel?
I thought... What, John?
God be thanked that he has matched me with his hour.
Reith. A happy chance, eh?
Why, yes, Prime Minister.
We must talk, Reith.
Here?
The Travellers' Club is as good as anywhere. You're the man of the moment, you know. You and the BBC are key to everything. Winston wants to take you over.
That would be a grave mistake, Prime Minister.
Grave?
An independent BBC that the people trust will be more useful to the government than if it were a mere mouthpiece of Mr. Churchill's.
Well, he's going to run a government newspaper, the British Gazette, I think, yes. The British Gazette.
Does the redoubtable Mr. Churchill know anything about running a newspaper?
No, but that's never stopped him in the past. I have put Davidson in charge of all news. I think you know him.
We're neighbours.
Oh, good. Now, is the BBC well protected?
Everywhere. Birmingham, Bournemouth, Daventry. At Savoy Hill, the Home Office have organised a rota of police and special constables.
Good. Reith, I want you to know that the government had no option but to break off negotiations. I don't like it, of course, because I'm essentially a man of peace, and I tried very hard indeed to negotiate, but the miners are impossible, and I think the Trades Union Congress are afraid not to go along with them. Reith, no elected government can be held to ransom like this.
Well, I understand that, Prime Minister.
I hope our people will understand it.
I think you should speak to them.
On the wireless?
Yes. A personal broadcast to the nation, explaining in clear terms the government's position and your desire for a peaceful and fair outcome.
You give me confidence, Reith.
I may tell you that I relish this task, Prime Minister.
You do seem to have a zest for the wretched business, Reith.
I do not welcome crises, but I admit to welcoming the opportunities they may bring.
Do you really?
Yes, of course.
Sometimes I think I would rather take a single ticket to Siberia than remain Prime Minister a minute longer. I never wanted the job, you know.
I never knew what job I wanted.
Oh, indeed.
Naturally, I wished to accomplish something of significance, but it was rather a surprise when I was appointed General Manager of the British Broadcasting Company. So be it. Full and by, Prime Minister. Full and by.
Yes. As you say.
Not Harry Lauder, perhaps, but these Cambridge undergraduates are in fine voice in their charabanc on their way to London to volunteer for work in the strike-bound docks. Good luck, lads. It can't be worse than those examinations.
Your coat, Prime Minister.
Oh, thank you, Jenkins. You were in the Navy, weren't you, Jenkins?
Proud to have served, sir.
Do you know what full and by means?
It's from the days of the great clippers, sir. Under full sail, close to the wind and fairly racing along.
Yes. Yes, that makes sense. Thank you, Jenkins.
London calling all regions. Mr. John Reith.
I am speaking to you this morning as Managing Director of the British Broadcasting Company about the present difficulties we are all experiencing. The BBC fully realises the gravity of its responsibility to all sections of the public and will do its best to discharge it in the most impartial spirit that circumstances permit. We shall do our best to maintain our position of fairness, and we ask for fair play in return.
Here is the 4 o'clock news bulletin on Tuesday the 4th of May. The General Council of the Trades Union Congress has expressed satisfaction at the number of its members who have answered the call to strike. It has claimed that 1,750,000 workers have come out on strike in solidarity with 1 million members of the Miners' Federation.
Yes, Eckersley.
Mr. Reith, some of my engineers have volunteered to act as special constables.
Well, instruct them to withdraw their names at once.
Oh. I thought perhaps in their spare time they
No
might
one
be
in the
able-
BBC will have any spare time.
The public should understand that the sudden change from the bulky newspaper to the short bulletin cannot be perfected in an instant. Moreover, the world has been asleep and not active for the last 8 or 10 hours, and therefore there is bound to be comparatively little news in the first bulletin.
Would you like some more toast, John?
The danger is Churchill.
More tea?
But I do have the Prime Minister's ear, and I am determined to show everyone what broadcasting can do in a crisis.
Oh, John, I do wish you could relax more when you're at home.
Muriel, I don't think you quite appreciate that this
That
is
this
the
is the BBC's
greatest opportunity, and its greatest danger.
Yes, John.
And of course that means my greatest opportunity and my greatest danger.
Of course, John.
If Churchill were to win the argument in the Cabinet, and the BBC were to be commandeered, everything I've worked for, everything I have dreamed of would be wrecked on the shoals of expediency, and the nation would be the poorer place for it. What was it that Hotspur said in Henry IV, Part 1?
Out of this nettled danger
Out of this nettled danger, we pluck this flower's safety.
The situation in the country was discussed in the House of Commons yesterday, the 4th of May. The Prime Minister said that the strike is no longer an industrial dispute, but an attack on the Constitution. Mr. Ramsay MacDonald, replying for the Labour Party, said that the strikers were not attacking the Constitution, but simply supporting fellow workers who had been threatened with a lowering of their wages and a lengthening of their hours of work. Sir John Simon.
Eckersley, I want to relay to my own house.
What for, Mr. Reith?
Because I want to be able to broadcast from there myself.
Yes, sir.
Anything wrong?
No, sir. It's just that it may take some time.
This is a priority.
Very well, Mr. Reith.
And Eckersley?
Yes, Mr. Reith.
No volunteering.
We will now hear an organ recital relayed from St. Michael's Church, Cornhill.
Is this all the space they could give you, Davidson?
Yes.
Insist on more, man. Requisition more. 2 telephones.
Yes.
Put in a dozen.
Right. Right, I will.
So the news comes to us from the agencies and we editorialise and send it here to you.
Yes.
And what do you do with it?
Well, as I understand it, we decide what is in the public interest and what isn't.
And then you send it back to us and we broadcast it?
Yes.
Have you sufficient experienced people to handle this amount of news?
We have no experienced people at all.
I shall send you a small team from Savoy Hill. And they can take care of this end. Under your supervision, of course.
That seems good.
Aren't you excited?
More worried, I think. It's a very grave situation.
Davidson, no one, no politician, no press baron, no member of the public understands the huge possibilities of broadcasting as a public service as I do. I alone do. And I understand this too, Davidson. The iron must be heated in the striking. And with the help of the Lord Jesus Christ, I mean to strike.
Many of those trying to get to work this morning have faced difficulties owing to the lack of trains, omnibuses and trams. The railway companies report that all mainline services have ceased, and none of the underground lines is working. Our good advice about lifts is generally being followed. Office girls in particular have little complaint about the lack of free seats in private cars. An occasional plutocrat, complete with cigar in a large Rolls-Royce, is a rare and unpleasant sight in the overcrowded streets. Some right-minded motorists have naturally been disgusted to find that their passengers were merely visiting London to see the fun. That, of course, is disgusting.
So these pretty office girls are waiting for a lift. Here comes the car, ladies. Don't all rush now. Oh, you've never been so popular, sir. Tell the wife you were just doing your public duty.
Have the strikers made any attempt to cause oscillation on our frequencies?
No, Mr. Reith.
We must be careful not to antagonise them, Eckersley. I've promised the public that we'll be fair, and I mean to be fair. We must make sure that all reasonable statements from the Trades Union and Labour Party leaders are broadcast.
Who decides whether they're reasonable or not?
We do, of course.
What criteria do we use?
The public good. As it's clearly not in the public good for the strike to continue indefinitely, we must broadcast nothing that could be said to prolong or extend the strike. I'll write a memo to all the staff to this effect.
Rumours are flying about in spite of the wireless. Don't spread them, please, if they are of the alarmist kind. We found yesterday a nice old couple who'd come up to town on Monday with a view to starting for a holiday. But didn't you know there was a general strike? Oh, we heard it on the wireless, but we didn't know it was true. Ladies and gentlemen, if you hear it on the wireless, it is so.
No, no, man, not a comma, a full stop. You cannot allow sentences to live on after their natural span in a state of living death. There, simple and direct. Take it away and rewrite it.
But, Mr. Churchill.
Ah, Davidson, you've come to see the great work. With the help of a few loyal technicians sent to us by Lord Beaverbrook and some enthusiastic volunteers, we have outflanked the unions, and we'll have the first edition of the British Gazette on the streets tomorrow morning. A day and a date that will live long in the annals of freedom.
You certainly seem to have...
I tell you, managing a daily newspaper is exhilarating. It's like being on the bridge of a great battleship or running a first-rate general election. Read this.
The alternative to parliamentary democracy is dictatorship of either the fascist or communist variety. We must choose which we want and stick by our choice, resisting all the blows of fate and threats of faction. Our long history has shown that the British people's choice is parliamentary democracy.
Well?
Of course it's true, but...
But what?
Must we call the other side fascists and communists?
That's what they are, Davison.
I don't suppose 5% of the strikers know what either communism or fascism is.
No, I quite agree with you. And that is why we must not allow them to sleepwalk into despotism. We must wake them up. Where is that report of the arrest of the Member of Parliament for Battersea North? Simpson! Simpson!
Yes, sir.
Ah, here we are. Mr. Shapoorji Saklatvala, arrested and charged with making a seditious speech in Hyde Park. It is alleged that Mr. Shapoorji Saklatvala called on members of His Majesty's forces to lay down their arms and take the side of the people. There you have it, Davidson. The Bolshevik of Battersea North has spoken. The Hindu fakir of the House of Commons is quite clear where he stands on the question of parliamentary democracy. He is against it.
He's a Parsi, actually.
Really?
I believe so.
Well, them that eats cakes that the Parsi man bakes makes dreadful mistakes. Ha 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 ha! It will be the task of the British Gazette to expose all acts of sedition and intimidation. What we must do now is unite the power of the pen and the power of the spoken word. We must take over the BBC.
The Prime Minister places a lot of confidence in Mr. Reith.
So much the better. We'll put him to work. We'll coordinate the whole thing from here. We shall speak with one voice, and it shall be the voice of parliamentary democracy, and not the voice of the Shapoorji Saklatvalas of this world.
Friday the 7th of May and things are hotting up. Did I say hotting up? Here at the Elephant and Castle they are boiling over. Pickets have been attempting to stop private cars and taxis taking people to work. A police battle charge. They're coming forward. They're running at the crowd. Oh gosh, they are. Oh dear, they are rather vigorous. Very vigorous. Well, I'm sure he'll be all right in a minute.
The MCC has recommended that the counties carry on their programme of matches as circumstances permit, though owing to transport difficulties, some matches may have to be reduced to 2 days. Cricketers should be guided by a sense of public duty rather than loyalty to their counties, but the MCC strongly recommends that the best possible 11s should be put in the field against the Australians, out of courtesy to our guests.
Memo from the Managing Director BBC to all staff in all stations. You should exclude any statements referring to the employees of particular industries or works joining the strike movement. News from the Trades Union Congress should be confined to the advocacy of restraint and the avoidance of disorder. Nothing calculated to encourage the strike should be broadcast.
The sound of horses' hooves on the streets of London is brought to you by the gallant men on steeds of the Ranelagh Polo Club. They have volunteered as special constables and will help out the ordinary bobby on his beat from horseback. They are wearing their polo helmets and have been issued with handy wooden staves in place of their usual mallets. Jolly good chucker, chaps.
Prime Minister.
Yes?
Mr. Davidson and Mr. Reith to see you, sir.
Come in, gentlemen, come in. Sit down. I've just been reading this. Do you know it?
Mrs. Dalloway. No, Prime Minister.
I don't have time for novels, Prime Minister.
There's a Prime Minister in it, goes to a party. I wondered if he might be me.
Prime Minister?
Yes, Reith.
When you asked us to come, I jotted down some points.
I see.
The BBC is part of this crisis too, and we must assist in the maintaining of essential services, the preservation of law and order, the life and liberty of the individual, and this I am certain we can do.
Indeed.
We start with the advantage of having the public's respect, their goodwill, and even their affection. But if we are to be commandeered, that essential confidence would disappear like snow off a ditch, and our vital function would be nigh impossible.
Do you agree with this, Davidson?
Yes, Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, this is no time for dope.
Oh, certainly not.
If the BBC is commandeered and becomes a mere appendage of government, the people will suspect us of peddling dope and won't believe us and be prey to every dangerous rumour. The panic of the ignorant is a fearful thing to behold, Prime Minister.
You say this is no time for dope, so I will not give you dope, Reith. There are those in the government who are surprised that we have not already commandeered the BBC.
Mr. Churchill sees you as a wing of the British Gazette.
That is entirely unacceptable.
Gentlemen, it is my task, gentlemen, as Prime Minister, to keep my colleagues calm. No hysterics, no extreme actions or words. Of course, the government must win. In no sense can it afford to lose. But I want the battle to be as bloodless as possible. I want to be able to live with the defeated afterwards. I am relying on the BBC to help in this, Reith.
That is understood.
Can I order tea or anything?
We very much regret that owing to the difficulties caused by the strike, the circulation of the Radio Times this week is very much restricted, and we fear that many listeners will be unable to obtain their usual copies. We shall do our best, by means of microphone announcements, to keep you all informed as to notable coming events in our programmes.
Davidson, are you encouraged or discouraged to find our Prime Minister reading a novel?
Encouraged. Stanley Baldwin is an uncomplicated man. He came to a decision that the trades union's demands threatened the Constitution, and he said no. He will go on saying no until the trades unions call off the strike, and he will leave the details to others.
Here is the 1 o'clock news bulletin on Friday the 7th of May. The government has called for more volunteers. Details of where and how to join will follow this bulletin. The Trades Union Congress has claimed that despite the presence of police and military, the strikers are showing impressive orderliness and dignity.
Mr. Churchill on the phone for you, Mr. Reith.
The beast himself.
Am I speaking to the managing director of the British Broadcasting Company?
You are?
Listen to this. What do you think of that, Reith?
A rather loud noise.
That is the sound of the presses rolling out the next edition of the British Gazette. It is the sound of the free press roaring its defiance against the syndicalists in the print unions. Send round some of your technical staff and set up a relay between here and Savoy Hill.
To what purpose?
To broadcast it, of course.
But it's just an unidentifiable noise.
We will tell the listener what it is, and then he will recognize it on each occasion and take comfort from it.
On each occasion?
We can run the presses for you each time you broadcast a news bulletin. It will stiffen the sinews and summon up the blood of our people before they listen to the news on the wireless.
Might it not be more likely to be full of sound and fury, signifying nothing?
What?
To be useful, sounds must be meaningful in themselves. Like birdsong, say, or horses' hooves.
What you propose would simply be a waste of precious technical resources.
I didn't realise that the BBC was afraid of innovation.
I assure you that we are not.
Well, what about taking a story for your bulletins from the columns of the British Gazette? Why not a regular item entitled, let's say, Today from the British Gazette?
If I did that, Mr. Churchill, I would, in fairness, have to run another item entitled Today from the British Worker.
This is not a game of cricket, Mr. Reith, and you are not an umpire.
And you are not a broadcaster, Mr. Churchill.
You refuse to broadcast items from an official government publication published by His Majesty's Stationery Office.
Any item of sufficient interest and sufficient balance will, of course, be considered, but that is all I can promise. However, please keep in touch. The BBC is always on the lookout for good material.
Goodbye, Mr. Reith.
Afraid of innovation, forsooth. The man is mad.
Bird song and horses' hooves, the man is mad. Any item of sufficient interest and balance, the man is arrogant. You are not a broadcaster, Mr. Churchill. Not yet, Mr. Reith, not yet. What the hell is this, Simpson? Call this a headline? Here, let's put some punch in it. Let's knock 'em on the chin. How dare the trades unions threaten the oldest democratic forum in the world? Threat to the Commons. That's better, much better. Withdrawal of workmen. Speaker's spirited reply. Now for it. We will carry on without electric light.
The ancient streets of London are echoing to the sound of stockbrokers on the march, civil servants in column of route, shop girls advancing in fours, and all of them cheerful, willing, and able to do a day's work despite the lack of omnibus and train. Go to it, Britons, we say. We admire you all.
In the House of Commons yesterday, Friday the 7th of May, the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Ramsay MacDonald, said that he objected most strenuously to the way in which the government and its agencies were presenting the strike and the strikers to the general public.
We need more stories of seditious activity by the strikers. Bring me more court cases.
I do not recognise, said Mr. MacDonald, the gross caricature that the government speakers paint when they describe us, on this side of the House, as Bolsheviks plotting revolution.
Write this. Thomas Adams, a platelayer, was arrested for stealing a hammer and preventing 2 volunteers from continuing their work as platelayers.
Let me make it clear to everyone that we do not plot revolution.
As he left with his hammer, he shouted, "Long live the revolution!"
But that all we want is for working people to get a fair day's pay for a fair day's work.
Croydon magistrates sentenced Mr. Adams, sentenced the revolutionary Mr. Adams to 3 months hard labour.
This speech is brought to you by A.J. Cook, Secretary of the Federation of Mine Workers.
The mine owners say that our pay must be reduced and our hours of work increased. I say to the owners and the politicians, come down the pit with me just for 1 day and spend 9 hours in those dark, dangerous dungeons of despair and bring home a miner's wage to your wife. And you and she will agree with me that the miner cannot accept 1 penny off his pay or 1 minute on his day.
Anyone suffering from strike depression could do no better than pay a visit to RSVP, the new comedy running in the Vaudeville Theatre. Last night's audience included 6 rows of special constables, 70% of whom seem to be undergraduates. We do hope that their duties as constables are not as taxing as their examinations.
What is so difficult about the Archbishop having his say? We've come to a pretty pass that the leader of the Christian Church in England cannot speak his mind on a matter of such importance. It is even more doleful a prospect if the BBC cannot afford him the opportunity.
It'd be all right if he confined himself to spiritual matters, peace and goodwill, brotherly love, prayer, and so forth, but he makes some definite proposals.
And what is the government's problem with the trades unions calling off the strike, and the owners reciprocating with a withdrawal of the lockout notices and the new pay scales?
According to the Archbishop's manifesto, these things must all happen simultaneously. It is the government's position that the strike, which is a threat to Parliament and the Constitution, must be called off before anything else can happen.
Most ordinary people will not see that as sufficient reason for prolonging the strike.
Exactly so. In fact, the Archbishop's proposals sound so damned reasonable they will sound eminently sensible and moderate to many, many people. People now opposed to the strike. But to begin negotiations on those terms would mean a defeat for the government and victory for the unions, and the Constitution would be violated.
Then why did the Prime Minister tell the Archbishop that though he wouldn't like it, he would not stand in the way of him making a broadcast?
Because he is the Prime Minister, and a Prime Minister has to live with an Archbishop after the strike is over.
It's not just the Archbishop, you know. He's consulted widely with his bishops and with the representatives of the free churches. He will be speaking with the voice of the entire Christian church in a Christian country.
If you allow the Archbishop to broadcast, you will simply encourage Churchill and others in the Cabinet to demand that the BBC be commandeered forthwith. In the circumstances that would obtain after the Archbishop's broadcast, I do not think that the Prime Minister could stand against them. However, the Prime Minister has clearly left it up to you, Reith.
We make our own headlines today, gentlemen. Saturday the 8th of May, and after only 3 days in business, our circulation has risen to more than 500,000 copies. It's a triumph, gentlemen. We are all due congratulations and the grateful thanks of the freedom-loving British people. Now, where's the story about the red-skirted femme fatale? Simpsons! Ah, yes. Isabel Brown, last permanent address, Moscow, was sentenced to 3 months' imprisonment by Pontefract magistrates yesterday for having made a speech at Castleford likely to cause disaffection. She admitted that she had come there from London to win recruits to the Communist Party of Great Britain. Put that beside the circulation figures. But do we know if she was in fact wearing a red dress? No. Well, it's a pity, but no, perhaps we must exercise some editorial control. Market, Moscow resident, sentenced!
And now a schools programme. Mr. E.K. Robinson will give another talk in the series Reptiles and Their Allies.
Thank you so much for seeing me at such short notice, Your Grace.
No, Mr. Reith, it is I who am indebted to you.
I'm afraid I must refuse your request to broadcast an appeal to the nation on the BBC.
You must.
Yes.
The government has decided this, haven't they?
No, it is my decision.
I'm at a loss to know why.
The BBC is in a difficult position, Your Grace.
When I told the Prime Minister of the wish of the representatives of the free and established churches that I should make a broadcast to the nation, he said that although he was not happy about what we planned to say, he would not stand in our way. That seemed to us honest and admirable. And though we have no wish to discomfit Mr. Baldwin, all of us felt in good conscience I should go ahead. Now we are to be denied by you, and you alone.
Your Grace, we at the BBC are in a very difficult position.
That is the second time you've used the word difficult. What are these difficulties?
Mr. Baldwin has been a good friend to the BBC. But I have been told that if I were to allow your broadcast, there is a very great danger that others in the Cabinet would demand that we be commandeered and become a mere government agency, and that Mr. Baldwin would be unable to resist those demands.
Mr. Reith.
Yes, Your Grace.
If I might use a country expression, are you not just telling me that there is more than one way of skinning a cat?
Skinning a cat? I don't quite...
Either the government commandeers the BBC and directly controls what it does and says, or it threatens that it will. And to avoid this, you choose not to provoke the government. The two results are the same.
Your Grace,
Either way, the Archbishop of Canterbury does not make his broadcast. The cat is skinned.
It would be much, much easier for me if the BBC were commandeered. But it would not be good for the reputation of the BBC, nor for the public interest.
Is it not in the public interest that the carefully considered opinion of the leaders of the Christian churches in a Christian country should be heard as widely as possible.
Your Grace, in 3 years the BBC has won the trust, the confidence, and, I may add, the affection of the people. All of that would be thrown away if we were to be seen as simply a tool of government propaganda.
But you are a tool of government propaganda.
I do not pretend that the BBC is not shackled, but we do have a certain latitude, some room for manoeuvre, a measure of freedom. It is my vision that that freedom will be extended.
If you're a good boy now, there'll be jam later.
I believe that the future of public broadcasting in this country is more important than jam.
I spoke metaphorically.
I know you did, Your Grace, but... jam!
You are a son of the manse, I believe.
Yes.
Then you will know what a conscience is.
Your Grace, I have tried to live my entire life according to the best dictates of my conscience, of my informed conscience. Informed by the word of God, that is.
Well, I will leave you and your conscience together. Then may they be at peace.
Please try and see this from the BBC's point of view. It is essential.
Thank you for coming, Reith, but I think in charity we have said enough to each other.
Well played. No, Sonny, it is not the Australians at the Oval against Surrey, but the police against strike pickets at Portsmouth. Well done both sides for making a friendly match of it. The result is a draw, but the hard-pressed British public have declared that both sides here today were winners.
I did not know that you could broadcast from your own home, Reith.
Oh, yes, Prime Minister. It's all bustle and noise at Savoy Hill.
Oh, Prime Minister...
And the first ever Prime Ministerial broadcast would cause far too much excitement.
Such an honour, Prime Minister.
Not at all, Mrs. Reith.
I want you to be relaxed, Prime Minister.
I who am honoured.
I do hope that you'll find
Muriel,
out...
we have urgent business.
Of course, John. Prime Minister, Mr. Davidson.
Mrs. Reith.
A quiet, if earnest talk to the individual in his home, I thought. Like a fireside chat.
Be a good fellow, Reith, and run your eye over this drivel.
I'm certain it's not drivel, Prime Minister.
Well, you have more faith in me than I have in myself.
Mr. Ernest Bevin, who is coordinating the Trades Union Congress Strike Committee, has said that there are only two sides in this dispute, the strikers and those who are against them.
What do you think?
It's very good, Prime Minister. But perhaps you should add something personal. Something about being a man of peace, longing for peace, praying for peace.
You write it.
Reith? Me?
Yes. And if you have a legible hand, just add it on to the end here.
Very well.
Oh, Davidson, my pipe in my overcoat, I think.
Certainly, Prime Minister.
Two young ladies on a tandem. That's the way to solve the problem, girls. Plenty of fresh air and exercise. And just look at those ankles, boys. Wow! Bit of a head turner, that, sir.
Sit here, Prime Minister.
Yes.
Opposite the microphone.
Thank you.
That's fine. Now, when we get the light, I'll lean over your shoulder to announce you.
You're right.
Thank you, Davidson.
5, 4... London calling. London calling all regions. The Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Mr. Stanley Baldwin, MP.
The general strike has now been in progress for nearly a week, and I think that, as Prime Minister, I should tell the nation once more what is at stake in the lamentable struggle that is going on.
The mine owners say that our pay must be reduced and our hours of work increased. I say to you, we will not accept 1 penny of our pay and 1 minute added to the day.
I wish to make it as clear as I can that the government is not fighting to lower the standard of living of the miners or of any other section of the workers. That suggestion is being spread abroad. It is not true.
I say to the owners and the politicians and those who malign the miners to come down the pit with me for just 1 day and spend 9 hours in those dark, dangerous dungeons of despair and see how they like it.
I am a man of peace.
And I say to you, we miners are no longer on our own. We have the support of the entire trade union movement.
I am living and working and praying for peace. But I will not surrender the safety and the security of the British Constitution. You placed me in power 18 months ago by the largest majority accorded to my party for many, many years. Have I done anything to forfeit that confidence?
We have the support of the entire working class, and the Workers United will never be defeated!
Write this down. At the close of the first week of the greatest strike in the history of our island nation, the vast majority of our people remain steadfast and loyal.
The sounds of bus windows smashing comes from well-aimed stones thrown by strike pickets on the Tottenham Court Road. The strikers are angry at buses being driven by volunteers. Right through the windscreen. Every throw a coconut.
The numbers of volunteers to see to the distribution of food, fuel, and other necessities is increasing daily, as is the dismay amongst the ranks of the syndicalists and Bolsheviks, as they see and are unable to prevent young men and women of spirit and patriotism manning the docks, driving buses, and keeping the peace as special constables. Society ladies drive men and girls to the bank, to the office, to fulfill 100 myriad functions that show that Britain is still in business, despite the worst that trades union leadership can do.
Each bus carries a policeman, but the strong arm of the law is powerless to deal with the missiles. Oh, there goes another!
Everywhere there is a cheerfulness and a willingness to see this thing through to victory. One is reminded of the words of Rudyard Kipling. Keep ye the law, be swift in all obedience, clear the land of evil, drive the road, the bridge, the ford. Make ye sure to each his own, that he reap where he hath sown. By the peace among our peoples, let men know we serve the Lord.
Yes, madam, this is a well-ventilated bus. No, sir, you don't pay extra for the fresh air.
Mr. Churchill?
Yes.
I believe Lord Grey is here.
Yes, he has been my luncheon guest.
I'm here to convey him to Savoy Hill, where he is to make a broadcast.
You are connected with the BBC, then?
I am its managing director.
Oh, forgive me, Mr. Reith, but I had not expected the managing director of the BBC to be running a taxi service.
Forgive me, Mr. Churchill, but I had not expected the Chancellor of the Exchequer to be acting as his own doorman.
We live in strange times.
We do indeed.
Step in, Reith. Lord Grey will not be long.
Thank you.
I'm sure you will be happy to hear that the circulation of the British Gazette has topped 1 million.
A triumph of distribution, no doubt.
Fleets of cars, lorries, aeroplanes, an unprecedented triumph in the history of journalism. The British Gazette now lacks just one thing.
And what is that, Mr. Churchill?
The full cooperation of the British Broadcasting Company.
I think our roles are entirely different.
When the Constitution is under threat, there is but one role for all good men and true, to defeat those who threaten it.
The BBC has carried all government statements, and last night we broadcast the Prime Minister's address to the nation.
But you also regularly broadcast statements from the enemy.
In endeavouring to be impartial, the BBC must be fair to those on the other side of the argument, Mr. Churchill.
How can you be impartial between the fire brigade and the fire?
I do not accept the validity of your analogy.
If the strike were to succeed and force the government to bow the knee and negotiate on the strikers' terms, would the Constitution not be endangered?
Certainly it would.
Well, how can you deny the full use of the BBC as one of its agencies?
If the BBC were to present an entirely one-sided view of the issues, like your British Gazette say, the BBC would soon cease to be trusted as a source of unbiased information.
And what gives you, the managing director of the British Broadcasting Company, the right to decide what is fair and what isn't?
Mr. Churchill, people do not pay the licence fee merely to listen to an agency of government.
Ah, I see Lord Grey on the stair. Your Jehu is here, my lord. Take care he doesn't drive too furiously. I hear you were badly wounded in the war, Reith.
Yes, I was.
In the head, was it?
It was in the head. But my present attitude is not in any way traceable to the wound.
The Anchorage, Linton Road, Acton. Dear BBC, I write to you as a listener who pays his 10-shilling licence fee. Now that Mr. Baldwin has spoken to us over the wireless, would it not be too much to ask that the same courtesy be extended to the Labour Party, so that listeners may hear both sides of the argument, not one side, as at present? Yours truly, C.S. Brodie.
This sound is brought to you from the food column of 122 lorries guarded by armoured cars, passing unmolested from the docks through the streets of the capital to Hyde Park, where every kind of foodstuff will be stored for distribution. Although the strike pickets look sullen, many people are cheery.
In today's issue of The British Worker, there is the following advice on how to behave in these difficult days. Do all you can to keep everybody smiling. The way to do that is to smile yourself. Do your best to discountenance any ideas of violent and disorderly conduct. Do something. Hanging about and swapping rumours is bad in every way.
Mr. Ramsay MacDonald to see you, Mr. Reith.
Oh, Mr. MacDonald, do come in and sit down.
Thank you, Reith.
Well done the army, and well done the volunteers who unloaded the ships and filled up the lorries. Yes, madam, there will be something for his dinner tonight and tomorrow night.
My colleagues are appalled that a national service subscribed to by every class should have given us only one side in this dispute.
Believe me, we have tried to...
Is it not unjust that the Prime Minister and a spokesman of the Liberal Party can broadcast the view that the strike is against the Constitution, and that I am not allowed to argue the opposite on behalf of the 2.5 million on strike, and countless more who support them?
Mr. MacDonald, as I said, there are certain restraints on the BBC. We are not as free as we would like to be.
Then you must admit it, and not pretend to the public that you're running an impartial service.
I believe
Because a great many people accept your bona fides of impartiality, you are in fact propagandizing the government's line far more effectively than the British Gazette.
Mr. MacDonald, I believe I am doing my best in almost impossible circumstances.
And if this government stays in power, I'm certain you will be well rewarded.
London Calling. Here is the news bulletin at 9:30 on Tuesday the 11th of May. The general strike is 1 week old today. The Prime Minister said in Parliament that there will be no settlement of the dispute in the coalfields until the owners and miners find a way to settle their differences without government intervention.
Mr. Reith.
Eckersley.
I've been helping to sort out the news today as it came in. We sent it all off to the Admiralty as usual, but when it came back to be broadcast, I noticed a number of items were missing. Every one of them was a statement by one of the union leaders or a Labour politician or a story that might have reflected well on the strikers. I can understand why certain things have to be censored, but I feel that the news is being deliberately biased by omission in favour of the government.
I can't control what Davidson does with the news.
But we're supposed to be neutral. We claim we are broadcasting the truth.
We have not broadcast any untruth.
What is the good of that if we don't broadcast the whole truth? What use is truth if it is distorted by omission?
You know the difficulties we're working under.
At the beginning of all this, I asked you who decided what was reasonable and therefore fit to be broadcast, and you said we will decide.
Yes.
But we are not deciding. Davidson is deciding. The government is deciding, and we're playing along with this subterfuge.
I deeply resent the word subterfuge.
Is it not a subterfuge?
I take your use of that word as a personal affront. Withdraw it at once.
I withdraw it. But, Mr. Reith, I will say this. I have been telling all my friends to listen to the BBC because that was the only place where they would hear unbiased news. Now, I don't know how to look them in the face. Thank you for listening to me.
Don't walk away from me, Eckersley. Sit down. Sit down, man. It is not my fault that our purposes in the BBC so often coincide with those of the government.
What do you mean
by... The government represents the people. The BBC is for the people, and therefore the BBC supports the government.
Then we are a mere agency of government.
No! Eckersley, within the severe limitations placed on us by the government, we are doing our best to tell the listener honestly and factually what is happening up and down the country. We are providing essential information about transport, food distribution and government regulations.
I do not dispute
the
this for one...
effectiveness of this public service will disappear overnight if people suspect that they are no longer listening to the British Broadcasting Company, but to the British Gazette. But if we can get through this crisis with our reputation enhanced, or at least not dented in any way, there is an extraordinary future for broadcasting in this country. I believe the BBC exists to serve the public in a wider sense. If the public is given good things, this will increase the demand for more good things. Balanced, unsensational, fair news will create an understanding of what balance and fairness means, an improvement in the critical judgment of the listener, and an appetite for more such news.
Indeed.
The same is true for our other programmes. If our talks, our music, our dramas are all of good quality, the listeners will want more of the same and better still. If given financial support, monopoly, and more independence, the BBC could be one of the greatest civilising influences that has ever been devised by man. That is my hope for broadcasting.
That is mine, too.
But, Eckersley, we must persuade this government to grant us a charter which will allow all we dream of to happen. That vital decision will be taken in the coming months. If we force them into commandeering us by being rash and foolish, they may never learn to appreciate what a valuable tool independent public service broadcasting could be to any democratic government. And they may be tempted to take the commercial route and allow broadcasting to be a slave of capitalism, to be no better than a mere newspaper. A great opportunity will have gone forever. The essence of the arguments you've put to me has also been put to me by the Archbishop of Canterbury and the leader of His Majesty's opposition. Gentlemen, I both admire and respect. All that was deeply embarrassing for me. But I bore it.
Mr. Reith.
Your criticisms, from a loyal member of staff, from my right-hand man, struck to my soul. But I will not be blown off my course. Never. Never. Full and by, Eckersley. Full and by.
Mr.
Just go, will you? Go.
London calling. Here is the news bulletin at 10 o'clock on Wednesday the 12th of May. This is the 9th day of the general strike. In accordance with their plans, the Trades Union Congress has now called on those unions which have remained at work to join those already on strike. Workers in textiles have stayed away from work, and there are pickets outside the factory gates.
Good morning, Reith.
Davidson.
It's going to end.
End?
They've had enough.
But there are more workers on strike today than there have been since it started.
The Prime Minister was right. The rank and file may have been loyal and solid, but the leadership was terrified by the monster they had created.
You're sure about this?
The Trades Union Congress contacted Number 10 early this morning and said they wanted to speak to the Prime Minister. He said he was only prepared to see them if they were going to tell him that the strike was over. They agreed.
As simple as that.
No guarantees, no concessions. We've won. I told you Stanley Baldwin was an uncomplicated man.
What about the miners?
They are on their own.
It's 11 o'clock on the 12th of May, and the sound you hear is the car carrying the negotiating team of the TUC being driven to number 10 Downing Street. Is it good news, gentlemen? Oh, hello, young shaver. You will be able to tell your grandchildren that you saw history being made.
Eckersley! Eckersley!
Yes, Mr. Reith.
The strike has ended. I want an orchestra.
An orchestra?
And a choir.
A choir?
There's no time to lose.
The Australians have been making runs at Leicester. They did not declare overnight as anticipated, and Gregory made a fine 120 not out. Excuse me. We interrupt the cricket scores to ask everyone to stand by for an important announcement about the situation in the general strike at 20 minutes past 1. The latest score at Leicester is Australia 493 for 7.
It's over, gentlemen. We have won, and each one of you has played his part. Never have so few done so much to achieve success. No doubt that trades unions will claim some sort of victory for themselves, but they and their cohorts on the left have sustained a crippling defeat. No doubt our Prime Minister will be diplomatic and soothing in what he says, but in this hour of triumph, I can promise you that tomorrow's headline in the British Gazette will be Victory! Victory! Victory!